Well, gang, today we have a special show for you. Michael Fowlkes premiering Watch Party, The History of Sport Fishing, Chapter 1. Go ahead, Michael. Talk about this for a minute, and then we'll start it.
Well, you and Elliot came up with the idea last week about possibly doing a live, a watch party.
Watch party.
Yeah, which I'd never even heard of before, but I thought it sounded really cool. So I said, let's try it. So this is the first time, first shot. I have no idea what to expect. If you guys have any questions or see anything on the show that you want to ask about, now's the time to do it. Just text in a question and we'll pause everything and we'll try to get to your answers. And we'll go through this opening chapter 1 of the history of sport fishing and see if we can talk a little bit about how it all came together and what it all means.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think this is going to be really cool. I mean, the way you put this together, it was absolutely spectacular. I had no idea. And as you guys will see, as we get going here, we had no idea what was going to happen. Michael kind of just rolled with the changes and put his foot on the throttle and off we went. So here you go, gang. Here's the chapter 1.
Maybe.
Oh, here it comes.
Okay.
I remember the very first time I went fishing. I was 3 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. I didn't know what my dad did. I just know he left for work every day. When he came home at night, he was covered in salt and scales, fish scales. And I didn't even know what a fish scale was, but they were all over his shirt, his pants, his belt. I remember chewing on his belt when I was a baby because it had salt on it. And it felt good in my mouth when I was teething. I swear, I remember all this like it was I know it's hard to think that you remember this stuff when you're a little kid, but I do. 3 years old, sitting on the counter. We're going on the afternoon trip with my dad. And my mom putting my shoes on. I'm sitting on the counter telling me we're going fishing with my dad. He was running the Some Fun off the pier, and the boat was tying up to the pier, and I was sitting on the rail with my mom holding me, and she's saying, "That's your dad." And him coming out on the back of the boat, and him waving at me and saying, "Hi, David." Oh, I had no idea this was going to hit me this hard. But yeah, I'm 60 years old, and I remember it like it was right now. And then we went to go down the ramp and get on the boat. It was incredible, and that was it. I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to fish.
When man first fished for sport is purely speculative, but certainly predates any written history. This is the history of sport fishing. Chapter 1, The Byte. Man has fished since the beginning of time. Ancient cave drawings dating back 40,000 years show prehistoric man fishing for food. When man first dipped a line for the sheer joy of hooking a fish certainly predates any written history. However, artifacts recovered from ancient Egyptian archaeological digs revealed the earliest documentation of fishing with the use of a stick, hook, and a line. Artifacts depict emperors, including Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, fishing for pleasure along the Nile River. The Chinese, Romans, and Greeks have fished for over 3,000 years. This painting, Angler on a Wintry Lake, is the oldest known depiction of the world's first fishing reel from the Chinese Song dynasty dating back to the 3rd century AD. Man did whatever they had to do to catch fish. Spearheads were ground out of stone, crude hooks were whittled out of bone, horns, shells, and wood. Line was woven from the tails of horses. Nets were twisted together out of vines, dugout canoes, and primitive rafts, whatever it took to catch fish. With fish providing such a high source of protein, man continued inventing more and more efficient ways to harvest fish.
So, Michael.
Yes, sir.
This is super cool. Gang, you guys are getting to watch this watch party with me and Michael today. And this is Michael's passion. He put so much into this movie. You guys have to understand that he put so much into this. And the way it starts out, it totally hit me off guard. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how bad it was going to hit me because my dad had just passed away when Michael was putting this whole thing together. Kind of go into that for a minute, Michael.
Well, your dad was such a pillar in this industry. He was one of the silent leaders. Not maybe silent so much in his older years, but in the beginning, he was just a powerful leader in this industry and got things done behind the scenes. And I knew when he passed that, you guys have had an intimate relationship, ups and downs from the time you were a kid. And I was so pleased when you said you'd agree to come up and do an interview and help me try to make this film. And at the time, it was just a concept. It was really just, the idea that the first marlin, the first tuna, and the first broadbill swordfish that were ever caught on a rod and reel were taken off Catalina Island starting in the 1890s, 1898, 1896. And I just thought that was such a cool story. And then that to me was sort of the impetus to do this. And then when we started talking, you and I started talking, I wanted to get an insight from you as to how you got involved in fishing and what it's meant to you as an adult. You fished your entire life. You've worked in the industry your entire life. So, I was so thrilled you'd come up and agreed to come up and do the interview. You got to the studio here. We set everything up, said hello. It was great. Lights, camera, action. And my first question was, can you talk to us a little bit about your earliest childhood memories? And I'll never forget it. You started talking, and the next thing you know, the floodgates just opened up. It's just pure, raw emotion coming right from your heart about what fishing meant to you and what your dad and your mom meant to you and how they taught you to a sport, a career that you could enjoy for the rest of your life. And it's just the fact that you came across so authentically. I just said, this is how we've got to open the show. So we threw all the scripts out the window and we said, we're going to open it with Mr. Hansen.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much because
it
means a ton to my family. And this is so cool. Every time we watch this, I just start crying. I can't even, it just gets me every single time.
Me too, Dave. It's the authenticity and the fact that it just came from your heart, just makes it all so special. It just made the whole, to me, every one of us that's fished, I have the same memories as a child growing up. When I was a little toddler, like 5 years old, I got my first plastic fishing rod and reel and a plastic hook and went down to the goldfish pond by my grandparents' house. And I'd spend the summers down there in this little goldfish pond with a hook that was bigger than the goldfish, trying to get them to bite. So every one of us that's fished has had a similar experience to what you talked about on camera there. And I just felt like that sort of opens the door to all of us to kind of look back into our lives and remember what it was when we first learned how to fish and be grateful for those that taught us how to do that. And you've been preaching that since day one, Dave, that we've got to teach our kids to fish. I mean, people ask all the time, what's the most important thing I can do to help the industry? And that's take a kid fishing. And that's as true today as it was 50, 100 years ago. So anyway, I can't thank you enough for your willingness to just allow your emotions to come through and open up like that and start the whole series off with what it meant to you to have your mom and your dad teach you how to fish at such a young age.
Yeah, it's still emotional right this second. It's pretty cool. Gang, I want to ask all of you to hit the like button, subscribe button, share this. This is an incredible story Michael's going to start to tell here through this docuseries, and you guys are going to have an opportunity to go down and watch this with us, but share this with as many people as you can as we watch this today. And understand we're going to do this we're going to do this as long as you guys watch. We're going to have viewing parties. We're going to watch all 12, hopefully all 12. Hopefully there's enough of you that watch that make it entertaining, that Michael and I will narrate as much as we can. Mostly from this point forward, it's going to be Michael telling you guys how he put this together. So he wants to answer all your questions too. So anything you have, but here, let's watch for a little while here, and then we'll jump back in here and answer your questions.
All right.
Paleo Indians had been living in the Americas for over 40,000 years before Europeans first arrived. Many of their tribal cultures were nomadic hunters and gatherers. But for those that settled near the coast or in the Great Lakes region, fishing became a central part of their diet and culture. In 1585, East Coast settlers, led by Sir Walter Raleigh, wrote in their journals about the productive fishing techniques used by the local tribes. The Europeans quickly learned from them and adapted their methods to help sustain themselves as they established the colonies from North Carolina to Pennsylvania. In what later would become known as Alaska, the native Inuit people were excellent fishermen and had been surviving the harsh winters for thousands of years by catching and preserving fish. Many pre-colonial period Paleo Indians fished for food, but for some tribes of the Great Northwest, fishing was so much more than just a source of protein. There are many remarkable examples in history of how a fish species can become intricately woven into the cultural, financial, and environmental health of a place, its people, and perhaps none more so than the salmon. The salmon sustained entire tribes along the West Coast, from Mexico to Alaska. And for the tribes of the Northwest, their connection runs far deeper into the realm of the spiritual. Salmon are an androgynous species, spending their first year in fresh water and then migrating into the ocean before returning back to their birthplace, where they spawn and die. Their physical strength, beauty, natural cycles of life and death, while being a source of life for so many people, are just some of the many reasons they are so revered by the Native Americans and anglers worldwide. Indigenous tribes of the Northwest held first fish ceremonies every year to honor the arrival of the salmon as they returned from the sea. The tribes respected the salmon's life cycles and had strict taboos on taking fish that were spawning. In 1805, Lewis and Clark wrote about the millions of salmon who came up the Columbia River annually, and they reported that the fish were as thick as pebbles in the stream beds. As the colonies were being established, fishing was used as a way to feed families. There was no leisure time among these new settlers to practice fishing as an art form or a sport. For them, fishing meant survival. Coarse bait fishing was often done by children and women, as the men did the hard labor of clearing the land and building cabins. It was not until after the colonies were becoming well established and greater numbers of high-born, aristocratic English political and military leaders arrived that these elite few first began fly fishing for sport on American waters. In 1732, a few of the earliest fly fishermen living in the British colony of Pennsylvania wanted to secure a place for themselves to fish away from the growing townships. Since much of the land outside of the cities was still inhabited by Native Americans, they went to Chief Tammany of the local Delaware tribe of the Lenape Indians and established a treaty with the tribe, allowing them to fish undisturbed along the scenic section of the Schuylkill River in what is now Philadelphia. A few years later, they built a clubhouse dubbed the Castle, thus establishing the first fishing club in the Americas. The club remains today the oldest continuously operating social club in the English-speaking world. The club's historians have kept one of the most complete sets of records of any social organization in history. reading the roster of the club's members in the years leading up to the Revolutionary War, it is a virtual who's who of the leaders of the Patriots' cause. George Washington, who was an avid angler and was known to carry a coarse fishing kit with him into battle. Benjamin Franklin, William Penn, William Bradford, the Marquis de Lafayette, and Patrick Henry, who coined the battle cry, "Give me liberty or give me death." One can only imagine it was a lot more than just discussion about trout going on around the fire during the evenings in that lodge. Following the Revolutionary War.
Hey, I got to stop it right here. That's kind of an important thing.
Yeah,
Michael, can you talk about this for a minute? Because I learned so much by just watching this part of the movie. I was just blown away that our forefathers were so involved in the outdoors and in fishing. And to think that we're on the verge of losing fishing in America forever and ever. And they would be so pissed right now if they knew this was going on.
They'd probably be rolling over in their graves, because the men and women that formed that Schuylkill Fishing Club, basically it was all men in the day, were all fishermen. They're all fly fishermen. And they formed that club on the outskirts of Philadelphia along the river so that they could have a place to meet, not so much to talk about fly fishing, but what it was going to take to declare our independence from Great Britain. So these guys formed a social club and under the guise of a fishing club, so they could discuss and write the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of our United States were written by outdoorsmen. And I never learned that in school. I never was told that before. I never found that anywhere. Tammy Ebbets-Hahn, who was our head researcher on this film and has done just did an amazing job deep diving into some of these things. And she was the one who uncovered it, because the Schuylkill Fishing Company kept immaculate records. And she went through and started reading those records. That's how deep she dives into the research, and came up with this fact that these are the men that actually wrote the Declaration of Independence and created the Constitution of the United States. And had they been caught, David, at the time, these guys would have been hung for treason. This was no small undertaking. It wasn't some little ratsy-datsy deal. This was for real. And these guys were risking their lives to declare their independence from Great Britain. And we owe them, all of us owe them look, come on, it's the Constitution of the United States. It's the greatest governing document that's ever been written, period.
Yeah, I just want to say something, gang. We are so blessed to be here with Michael every Tuesday. We have Michael, and you guys, we talk about this a lot on our show on Tuesdays because it's so important, but we have the man right here who put this whole movie together with a bunch of really cool people. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask Michael anything you want. We have the man with us. He is willing to answer any questions. If you guys don't understand how important this film is, just keep watching. We're going to play the whole first episode. So here we go. Here comes some more.
The popularity of angling intensified. In 1775, Daniel Boone led the first settlers into Kentucky. Within years, they'd formed Bourbon County, home to the famous corn liquor bourbon distilleries. And in 1810, the Bourbon County Angling Club was formed for fishing black bass. George Snyder, the club's first president, was inspired to design and build casting reels. The watchmaker's concept of using a reel or a wind to collect the line was not new, but his fame quickly spread from making such a well-built reel, inspiring other ingenious individuals from the region to use precision craftsmanship that gave legend to the famous black bass Kentucky reel. These are the roots from which the sport of fishing was born. Fishing has woven itself into the very fabric of America's soul. Fishing doesn't merely recall a simpler America or a better America. It is America. Fishing reflects this country's essence in its purest and represents the best in all of us, passed down from generation to generation. Fishing is as much a part of America's past as baseball, football, apple pie, and the 4th of July. Adventurous East Coast anglers started fishing striped bass in the early 1840s, which increased in popularity following the Civil War. These bigger fish called for the development of larger top-mounted reel designs, allowing anglers for the first time to cast considerable distances into the surf with a heavier line. The striped bass was arguably the most formidable opponent anglers have ever attempted to do battle with. Genio C. Scott proclaims in his book, Fishing in American Waters, published in 1869, that casting bait for striped bass constitutes the highest branch of American angling. The method is distinctly American and characteristic of the modern angler in its energy and style, and the exercise and activity necessary for success. In no small part, due to the limitations and lack of faith in the tackle, it was a common belief that taking any fish over 100 pounds was simply an impossible task. In the mid-1880s, as the 19th century came to a close, recreational fishing had primarily been focused on smaller, freshwater species like salmon, trout, bass, and panfish. Initially, in the saltwater, sport fishermen went after the smaller, near-shore species like sea trout, redfish, and striped bass. The limits of fishing tackle at the time made the taking of larger species on rod and reel a near impossibility, or so everyone thought. Several species of big game fish like tuna and tarpon had been taken using methods including long lines from clippers, nets, traps, snag gear with large treble hooks, and even harpoons. But none of these spectacular saltwater giants had been successfully captured with a simple rod and reel. As late as 1883, Samuel C. Clark, author of The Fisheries of the East Coast of Florida, wrote, "No man is strong enough to hold a large tarpon unless he's provided with a drag or a buoy in the shape of an empty keg attached to his line, which may retard or stop the fish so that he may become harpooned after a while." That was a common belief amongst most anglers until some very determined men fishing along the desolate west coast of Florida began trying to land the magnificent Silver King tarpon with tackle they had previously been using for striped bass. To this day, there remains some question as to who exactly caught the first large tarpon with a rod and reel, but several names are mentioned in various news articles from the day. They include Pennsylvania's political boss, Senator Matthew Quay. Senator Quay claims that he took the first Florida tarpon back in 1871. Although there has never been found any recorded written history or newspaper articles reporting on the fish's weight, date of capture, location, or the tackle that he used. Samuel M. Jones was another angler who was reported by Forest and Stream magazine to have caught a large tarpon, over 100 pounds, fishing Florida's Indian River Inlet using striped bass tackle in 1880. Despite some controversy over exactly when and by whom the first large tarpon was caught on a rod and reel, Tarpon Bay author and historian Carleen Brennan reports that the individual most regarded as the first fisherman of tarpon was William H. Wood, who had traveled from his home in New York City to the coastal waters near Punta Rasa, Florida, and on April 18, 1885, caught the first officially recorded large tarpon on rod and reel fishing in the waters where the Caloosahatchee River meets the Gulf of Mexico. His 93-pound fish, taken on a bamboo rod using a live mullet as bait, created a frenzy of excitement amongst serious fishermen. When photographs and stories about his record fish were circulated in newspapers across the country, some details may be clouded in the mists of time, but it is clear that in the spring of 1885, a tiny Florida fishing village boasting small wooden rowboats and nothing but a seminal war-era converted army barracks for lodging became the epicenter for big game fishing. Men like Jones would continue to test their tackle until, as Forest and Stream reported, he caught a giant 130-pound Silver King tarpon with ordinary heavy striped bass tackle. Samuel Jones did what had never been done before, and in so doing opened the floodgates. Anglers began pushing their equipment to the limits, doing battle with what the press was calling the greatest game fish of all. The excitement over Silver Kings that began in 1885 remains true for anglers over a century later. With the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, the American landscape was rapidly changing as thousands of people migrated west. 3,000 miles from Florida, on the other side of the continent, in the waters surrounding a little-known island off the coast of Southern California called Catalina, Dr. Charles Frederick Holder, Colonel Clinton P. Morehouse, and Mr. Greer Campbell were cautiously venturing forth from the beaches of Avalon in small wooden skiffs with hickory poles, linen line, and primitive reels, trying to catch the mighty leaping tuna or bluefin that were abundant in the crystal clear.
All right, we got to stop for a minute. You got to talk. This is a very, very integral part of our industry. If you have been to Catalina, you've seen the plaque out in front of the tuna club. You've seen the statue of the bluefin chasing the flying fish. But this is going to tell you guys the whole story. It's pretty unbelievable, right, Michael?
Oh, it's amazing. And I mentioned earlier when we first started the podcast that the inspiration to make this film originally was just the fact that the first tuna, large tuna, and the first ever taken on a rod and reel was taken out off Avalon. And then a few years later, the first marlin was captured on a rod and reel. And then 10 years later, the first broadbill swordfish. So the first three major pelagic species, over 100 pounds plus, ever captured on a rod and reel anywhere in the world was captured right here off Catalina. And to me, that was the story. I went up and I was fortunate enough to go up and meet with Bruce Brown before he passed. And, you guys know he did The Endless Summer along with some other films. But I was so inspired to try to replicate The Endless Summer for sport fishing, where it basically meets Ken Burns. And so the idea was to try to keep it informative, a narrative that actually, authentic and true and factual, but at the same time blend some of the contemporary footage in and try to tie it all together. So Catalina, you mentioned it earlier, David. It's my favorite place on the whole planet. It is an absolutely magnificent island. I call it a spiritual vortex. There's so much good juju and energy there in that island. Just setting foot on the island or pulling up to it and dropping the anchor, there's a magical experience there. And here we are, 125 years later, 50, 200 years? I don't know. I can't do the math, but it's still one of the leading sport fishing destinations in the world. And we are so blessed to be in Southern California and have this fishery available to us that, generations has been built on the backs of generations of men and women. And we're just so fortunate to have it. So yeah, very proud of the fact that the first big fish in the world were ever captured off Catalina.
Yeah, it's incredible. I feel the same way you feel when I get on the island. And ever since I was a little kid, there's just something magical about stepping onto Catalina, going to the little restaurants, staying in one of the houses on the island. It's just, you can feel the energy in the house. And then I got to go inside the tuna club, which was And like if you're a baseball fan or if you're a football fan, to get to go to Cooperstown and go into the Hall of Fame, it's the same thing for a fisherman. And I don't care if you're on the East Coast, West Coast, whatever, got to go in there and check out all the different plaques and the writings and the books and the chairs and the rods and reels and all the different things that the Tuna Club has to offer. Unfortunately, John Stanley, I'm not allowed to become a member because I make a living fishing. There's a very, very stringent rule, and Michael can explain it here for a second. We'll get back into this, but there's a lot of things that have to occur to be a Tuna Club member, right, Michael?
It's they have some very stringent rules in terms of membership qualifications. Like you said, you can't be a charter captain. You can't work in the industry per se. It was set up. Dr. Holder basically set it up. His whole premise at the time was that, fishing was basically an act of survival. So they would take treble hooks off the beach in Avalon and throw these treble hooks out there and just pull them fast with chains on them, light chains, and they would snag yellowtail and white sea bass and halibut. And just, the beach would be littered with all these fish because it was just, they couldn't stop pulling them in when they had them. And so Holder decided that he wanted to create an ethical method for angling. And that's when he created the Avalon Tuna Club. It was basically formed on an ethical, fair challenge where the fish had a legitimate chance of escaping by using light tackle and light line. And he just really formed the whole club on the premise of, if we're going to fish recreational, let's do it with ethics. And so a lot of the rules that were written back in 1898 when the club was formed were based on ethical practices. And so at the time, for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is, but they did not consider boatmen, men like George Farnsworth, gentlemen anglers. They were considered a working force. So to be honest with you, it was formed by the elite, because only the elite could really afford to go out and do this type of big game fishing. It wasn't something you could do off the pier or the beach with a cane pole and a bobber. It took some finances to be able to get out and chase these big pelagic species. So titans of the industry at the time really were the members of the club. And so they created a very high standard for membership and a high standard primarily for your ethical angling practices. And one of the rules, which along with a couple others that I don't agree with at all, but it was that you can't work professionally within the industry as a captain, a guide, a deckhand, fish processor, commercial fisherman. It was really set up for quote and unquote recreational anglers.
Yep. Well, here you go, guys. Watch a little bit more of this. We'll get back into a little more, and then Michael and I will jump back on here. And guys, I hope you're enjoying this. Let us know in the comments if this is enjoyable. We need to know, because we'll do this more if you guys like it. If you don't like it, we'll do something else. But
if you don't like it, we can cut it off right now.
Let us know, guys, if you liking this. Guys, gals, Lisa, both Lisas, everybody's watching right now.
Hi, Lisa.
And you guys got to share this, and you got to like it so that we know. Here we go.
Dr. Holder was a prolific writer, renowned zoologist, outdoorsman, and a collector for both the Museums of Natural History and the Smithsonian. He became enamored with Catalina ever since first laying eyes on the island. In 1889, Dr. Holder wrote he was astonished by the abundance of marine life thriving in this pristine body of water, later calling it an angler's paradise, and describing how the leaping tuna would turn the water white as far as the eye could see, from Long Point to the East End, foaming on massive schools of bait. Despite the abundance of life, they were having little success landing fish. Hooking fish wasn't the issue. Their failures were due in no small part to their inadequate tackle. Because the early reels had no drags or anti-reverse mechanisms, the wooden handles would spin backwards whenever a fish would run, resulting in mangled knuckles and broken fingers as the angler tried to regain his grasp on the knob while fighting the fish. Reels froze, fingers were broken. When too much pressure was put on a fish, the rods would explode with a sound like the crack of a rifle.
Be careful now. I think I can hold it.
Up until this point, the most effective drag mechanism at an angler's disposal were simple strips of leather called thumb drags attached to the reel's rear spacer bars, which the angler would press against the outgoing line in an attempt to slow down the fish. A cry went out across the nation for manufacturers to build bigger, stronger, higher quality saltwater reels. Edward vom Hoff, son of the accomplished reel maker Frederick, and his brother Julius emerged as the most innovative and popular reel makers during the time, building the first ever 9/0 sized reel. Morehouse, Holder, and Campbell had been unsuccessfully trolling for large tuna in the waters off Catalina for years. However, in the summer of 1896, while using a vom Hoff reel, Colonel Morehouse became the first man in history to ever land a tuna weighing over 100 pounds using a rod and reel. Mr. Campbell followed that catch shortly thereafter with another tuna weighing in at over 100 pounds. But it was 2 years later, in 1898, when Dr. Frederick Holder landed the very first large tuna, a 183-pound bluefin, a fish whose size stunned fishermen around the world and inspired Holder to form the Tuna Club of Santa Catalina Island on June 15, 1898. The following year, Colonel Morehouse captured a 251-pound bluefin using 21-thread linen, and the sport of big game fishing was born. In 1903, Edward Llewellyn, while fishing with boatman Harry Wiley, captured the first marlin ever caught on a rod and reel. Then, a decade later, in 1913, William C. Beauchene, while fishing with boatman George Farnsworth, using a prototype star drag reel that Beauchene had designed and a Farnsworth silk kite, hooked and eventually landed the first broadbill swordfish ever taken on a rod and reel. And the sport of big game fishing was indelibly etched into the history books.
Avalon is where it all began. It was a destination. Not much to begin with. We had some shacks, pretty rough. I wonder what it would have really been like there in the very beginning when you had very little improvements. You're probably staying in camps more than you are an actual hotel or anything like that. There's a lot happening in Avalon. Not only are you looking at, the first tuna, but then the first marlin, then the first swordfish. And of course, the swordfish is probably the most spiritual of all. I'm sure getting that on a rod and reel was a very special moment. Beauchene's, I believe, was the first one, and the gear, obviously, they had a star drag. They were starting to experiment and get to some drag systems. And of course, those are all surface fish, not like what we're doing now. You know, it wasn't cheap to get to Catalina. It wasn't cheap to get this gear. You look at the first large game fishing reels, a Kowalski that somebody like Zane Grey would have used to catch his first record fish. That reel back in, you know, the 30s was a $600 reel. So the average person, you know, and people bought one rod, one reel. You didn't have 10 rods, you had one, and that's why they were made a little better. You know, that one reel had to last you your lifetime, and it did for a lot of anglers.
Growing up on Catalina Island, my first fishing memories go back farther than I can even remember. My earliest memories in my life all revolve around fishing. From using a drop line off the end of the green pier to going out with my dad, chasing marlin off the east end of Catalina and getting up at...
Now, Michael, Chase has been on our show before. He talks about how special it is on the end of the green pier with the drop line. I mean, I did that. You did that. It just means so much. Steve, he's been on our show. He's been a member of the Tuna Club for a very long time. Chase Ofield, oh my God, the legacy of these people is just incredible. Can you talk about that for a few minutes while we get into this part of the show?
Absolutely. We could talk about, we could do entire episodes on the Off-Field family, on Chase and Kalen and his dad, Packy, and what they've done for the sport and what they've done for the Catalina Island itself. And Steve Morris the same way. I mean, Steve's forgotten more about the history of fishing than I'll ever know. I mean, the guy is absolutely a walking encyclopedia, lives, breathes, and eats the history of sport fishing. He's so passionate about the sport, and he's such a gentleman. It's just, it was a humbling experience to be able to interview these guys and have them share with us a little bit about what the sport means to them, how they got involved in it, how the sport evolved, and how it evolved on Catalina Island, and specifically with Chase. He just, and later on in the show, we get into some of the stuff that he and his dad and his brother did. They spent 5 years. They were the first, Packy was the first one to step up and buy satellite tags. So Packy, out of his own pocket, purchased satellite tags, and they'd never been deployed before. So for 5 years, the Off-Field family basically traveled up and down Mexico and as far overseas as Hawaii and Tahiti, tagging marlin. Once they found out that the tags were working and they were getting phenomenal scientific data out of them, because they'd pop up after 90 days or I don't know what the earliest ones were, but now they can program them to last a year and a half, and then the tags there's a little rust element to them and they pop up, and then they transmit an enormous amount of data on the Great Marlin Race, for example, that the IGFA's put together. They're tracking marlin that have traveled like 7,000 miles from the time they were tagged. So the Off-Fields were the first family and the first anglers to do satellite tagging. We'll get into that later on, not in this episode, but just the contribution of these individuals. And Dave, as well as anybody that fishes, it's a very individual sport. Most of us fish because of the tranquility, the excitement, the thrill, the challenges, the satisfaction that we get out of having a rod and a reel in our hands. So very few of us are out there trying to promote ourselves. It's mostly about promoting the sport and enjoying the sport. And these early pioneers, the Holders and the Morehouses, and all the way through, the early Off-Fields and Steve Morris, these guys coming up, Barry Breitenberg, there's and Dwayne, Diego, you yourself, your dad, it just goes on and on. Any one of these guys, honestly, would merit a full 1 hour program just talking about their experiences in the sport itself. So hopefully we got a lot of work to do coming up. I know we talk about Bill Poole coming up in another episode, and Ingrid was just instrumental in helping put this project together from the very get-go. She was actually the very first person to sit down with me and say, Michael, I believe in what you're doing, and I want to put some money in to help you get this thing off the ground. Nice. So Ingrid Poole was instrumental in this project being built. And I know in her heart of hearts that she loves the series, but she'd love to see an entire tribute to Bill Poole, which I would love to do. And I think we could do the same thing with a lot of these guys. including your family, Dave. It just goes, the list goes on and on and on. We were only able to touch just the very surface. And there are so many people, so many men and women throughout our lifetimes and the lifetimes, generations before that, that were instrumental in helping develop this sport. And most of them, like Bo Shin. Bo Shin created the Star Drag. And he worked with George Farnsworth. He worked with A.J. Cox. And there were so many people that helped Bo Shin develop this that when he had it built, he never patented. He did not patent the Star Drag because he felt like it wasn't his invention, that so many people had contributed to the development of the Star Drag that he never took out a patent. Now, a lot of the other manufacturers found that out, immediately jumped on it and took out patents. But even, Bo Shin, the Ocean B, the Ocean Reel, the Ocean City Reel, initial B was done as a tribute to Bo Shin. So these guys, they just loved the sport. They didn't care about fortune. And it's just been an honor to have been able to spend the last 5 or 6 years going through this sport and talking to and interviewing and having people like Bill Dance and Ray Scott and Bill Poole and Frank Lopresti and your dad, and just so many people contribute. It's been a humbling and honoring experience, and I just hope everybody finds something in there that they can learn from or enjoy or help inspire them to continue to fish.
Yeah, Steve is an amazing human being, and he's, like he said, he's an encyclopedia for this thing. And when we got to take a tour of his shop or his museum, if you will, and all the drawers and all the things, it's just absolutely incredible. And he's a friend of the shows. He's a friend of Daniel's. And one other thing, the ReelQuick system was developed by Steve. Yep. And Daniel and him worked together side by side on this thing. But oh my gosh, just to have him as a friend and have him as a partner in this quest to make a better reel seat, it all comes from the need.
Yep. And if you guys haven't seen it, you should check out it's called ReelQuick, ReelQuick. It's a ReelQuick, completely revolutionized how to mount a reel onto a rod. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. It's pretty amazing. I think he can retrofit existing rods. I'm not sure, but I know at one point they were really working on being able to retrofit existing reel seats with their new ReelQuick mechanism, which it's the turn of a quarter and you can change your reels.
And he's a sponsor of the show on Thursdays, and so we're always bringing him on, and Daniel's always constantly talking about it. So this gives it a little more clout, gang, when you're talking to him about it. But let's watch some more of this because this is so cool.
In the dark and walking through Avalon and going white sea bass fishing in the early spring with him. Those are all my earliest memories. I really don't have any memories like that preclude fishing. Fishing back then, it was just such an adventure.
There's a primal feeling when you have something very big next to a very small boat. It's that a mano a mano. I mean, it's, you're real close up, personal in a small vessel. And I'm sure back in the day, and I know Farnsworth used to love to go in the fog so he could sneak up to his little hot spot on the backside there and not have anybody find him. Yeah, there's something about being in a little boat, spraying your face, wind in your face.
This is a big one. Here he comes. Oh, shit!
Oh my God! Oh my God!
It's always been about the experience, the enjoyment of being on the water. The water calls my name, 24/7. I mean, drive down the coast. Where are you looking? I'm looking at the water. You're not looking at the hill on the other side. So to be able to look at it and then feel it in your face and the wind and catch something big, it's pretty amazing because you have to plan it out because of weather. You don't have room for a bunch of tackle, so you got to minimize, and you got to learn how to be, very resourceful.
And that's what made, Catalina so special. The effort to get there, you're leaving literally one world and entering a totally different world. You're going back in time even then, and wow, what an experience to be able to do that. You have all this action happening in Avalon, it's being written about. It's in newspapers and people are hearing about it and there's a buzz about it. Well, these guys that are fishing there are probably going home, and saying, hey, wherever I'm going back home to, maybe I can do this there too. So I think a lot of what may have been picked up, guys vacationing, guys going to Avalon fishing for the first time, they took it back to wherever they were coming from and implemented those skills and that type of fishing there. So, you may have had guys even coming from the East Coast to the West Coast and vice versa. Two very different types of fisheries. I mean, it all started there. All the first of most of the large ocean sport fish were caught there. And even to this day, your Southern California fishing is still predominantly marlin, tuna, swordfish, just like it was 100 years ago. And the best part about all that is we now have these bluefin back. Those bluefin that started off with the Tuna Club 100 years ago, 120 years ago, they are back. And wow, I get excited just thinking about those fish. To have 200, 300, 400-pound bluefin in our backyard in California waters, absolutely amazing.
Barely hooked.
Get him good, bro.
Originally used for everything from fishing to smuggling before this century, the protected harbor of Avalon was developed as a resort destination as early as 1888. Throughout the years, steamboats and aircraft from the mainland brought hundreds of tourists each weekend.
Pennant is run up and it flutters proudly from the outrigger.
You're looking at a lot of communication with a flag. What better way to tell somebody, hey, we did really well, we got a marlin, we got a swordfish? Well, it's tough without a radio, but you put your flags up on your way and everybody knows what you did. And that's still to this day a tradition. Put that flag up when you catch that special marlin, swordfish, tuna, fly it high on the way back in, let everybody know.
Sitting in a boat with Marianne, night crawlers in a Folgers can, fishing poles and Oreos at 6 a.m. I ain't had a nibble on the bait, unless you count that license plate. When my daughter reeled it in, we laughed till it ate. It might look like we're out here wasting time, but it's more than just a fish on the line. Sun's coming up and it's getting hotter. Bugs keep biting, but that don't matter. When Marianne squeals, there's a fish, and Daddy, I got her. I know it's just a 6-inch carp, but to Marianne, it's a great white shark. And that look on her face when it gets away breaks my heart. It might look like we're out here wasting time, but it's more than just a fish on the line. Oh, it might look like we're just wasting time, but it's so much more than a fish.
If you don't believe in God, then just come on one of these trips and you'll see a different world. It's the most pleasurable thing you could ever do. So.
All these guys that started it, they weren't fishing with Spectra. They didn't have fiberglass rods. These guys We're fishing with wooden sticks, cotton line, linen line, and really tough gear. It was, I still think to this day, the gear is more important than the angler's skill. In all honesty, if you have good linen, you've got the right rod, you got the right connections and everything else, the angling may be the easy part. If Holder was able to catch a 251 pound or Morehouse, 251 pounds on old gear on an old bamboo rod, well, why couldn't we do that? So to bring back that history and to fish like they did and continue to promote it, that's what got me into the club. That's what made me excited about it. Carl had Zane Gray's Hardy, 7.5, the big Hardy reel that, of course, Zane Gray had fished with. He sets up the Zane Gray Hardy reel with 39 thread. Okay, so that's about as heavy as you can get with linen. He's got a wooden rod, so he's fishing true back 100 years ago and going after a grander potentially. And the right one came along and he got hooked up on it. Amazingly, and they had problems with it getting near the herring nets and all this stuff. Everything held and they got the fish. And of course he's got that incredible picture, probably about a 600+ pound tuna. And it's right by the side of the boat. Carl's got his hand on it, big smile. He's got the rod right there, snap picture, and then they release that fish. So, I mean, you really can't get better than that. And to do it on the old gear like that. When fishing first started, you were using animal hairs and anything that could be woven together, fishing sea bass, fishing yellowtail with these gear, which is pretty amazing that they were able to do that back then. So there was an evolution from those animal hairs to cotton and silk. Plenty of silk lines. In fact, most of the bass fishermen were using silk lines for whatever reason. And I guess we seem to see more of the cotton line that was actually used in the ocean. Ashaway was probably the big company back then making linen line, made a ton of it. That linen line today, if you can find it, very valuable to collectors. Obviously, we seek it out because we want to fish it. We want to be able to catch that tuna on that linen line. And if you think back to how those guys were fishing and the gear they use and what they had to do, it just adds another level to catching that fish. And, if you love fishing,
Gang, I want to stop this for a second. This is brought to you by Promar. We couldn't show this today if it wasn't for the great people over at Promar. And I am just so happy that they're a part of Your Saltwater Guide and everything that they have to offer. If you go and use their QR code right now and pick up some of the product over at Promar, you'll be blown away with all the different products that they have, from your bait scoops to your sabiki rods to the hoop nets, all the several different types of hoop nets and all the different things that they have to offer. Promar has been a part of Your Saltwater Guide since the very beginning, and they're a proud sponsor of this show. And Michael and I couldn't put the show on without Promar. I'm going to show you guys the QR code. I'm going to let everybody that's listening know that you can go to promarahi.com, put in the code YSWG and the number 22, and you'll get a great savings on the products. But to show you the commercial today, we're going to not do that because we're going to keep this flowing and keep this going. And then I'm going to show the commercial tonight because we're going to be live hoop netting tonight. So we'll show their commercial today. But without the fine people over at Promar, none of this is possible. So thank you, everybody over at Promar, and let's watch the end of this.
And that's what it is. It's a challenge to fish that gear. You almost have to be a masochist because it is painful. You will lose fish. You will break things. People will think you're crazy. I love antiques. I love history. And what a better way to take history, antiques, and then add it to fishing and get to do kind of all of them at once. Wow, that's pretty cool. So, I love fishing the old gear. And, catching a fish on the old gear is a little more meaningful, I think, than bringing one in on a modern drag on on Spectra line that you're never going to break it. Everybody has to farm. That I have no problem with farm. I have no problem with commercial fishermen, you know. However, most anglers have the ability to fish the right way, and some choose not to. Now, there's no reason on all these beautiful swordfish that guys are out there fishing with an electric reel and having to push a button to bring the fish to the boat. If you're harvesting fish, fine. Okay, if you're calling yourself a recreational fisherman, put the electric reel away, harness up, catch that fish the right way, and you'll appreciate it. And the bigger part about it is you go, wow, I didn't think, I thought it'd be a lot more difficult than that. Again, the gear. If you're harnessed properly, you can land these fish just as easily as sticking the rod on the rail. You feel good because you caught it the right way, and you know it's in your heart of doing it the right way. You know, and that's what's special. And if you do it the right way, you may lose a few more fish, but hey, the ones that you do get are more special, and you're just helping the fishery, right? You have guys like Zane Gray, who was a club member for a while there. Very interesting story with how Mr. Gray left the club. Apparently, he didn't believe that a female could have caught a swordfish larger than what he had caught. And, well, that happened. He couldn't believe it and decided to resign from the club. So Zane was out of the club, but he continued to fish and break records.
Despite Gray's efforts, it was Captain Lurie Mitchell who caught the largest.
Pause it because we're at the hour. We're at the hour. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to just come back next week?
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes left of the show.
Okay, cool. Let's just run it right.
We'll just keep it going.
All right.
Are you? Do you gotta? No, do you gotta go? Do you got
I'm good. Meeting? I canceled.
Okay. All right.
Caught on a rod and reel in February 1926 with a 976-pound black marlin. Let's listen to Captain Mitchell's direct quote from Zane's book, Tales of Anglers El Dorado, New Zealand.
We saw some bait close to the rocks. We ran over and I threw my yellowtail over the side. It was dead, but I thought I'd try it. And by gad, something took it right away. The fish ran off 200 yards of line. He felt as solid as Gibraltar. I couldn't do anything with him. We followed him and I fought for all that I was worth. I had been fighting him for nearly 4 hours when he took his last short run and stopped. After that, I could find that I could hold him, lead him, and drag him. He looked so tremendous that I was scared weak. My gad, it was an awful fight. Zane is quoted as saying, after seeing Mitchell's giant marlin, it was not until the next morning that I had a good look at this great marlin. And though I thought I had prepared myself for something extraordinary, I had not done it justice. It was almost round, very fat, and full clear down in the tail, and as solid as a rock. Faint dark stripes showed through the black opal hue. The bill was short, and as thick as a spade handle at the point. Huge scars indented the broad sides, evident of many undersea battles. The length was 12 feet 8 inches, the girth 6 feet 2 inches. The spread of the tail was 4 feet, and her weight 976 pounds. Try as he might, Zane was unable to top Captain Mitchell's fish, although he did catch this nice 704-pound black, which was Zane's largest fish to date. The inspiration of having caught such a great marlin encouraged Zane to continue his quest. Everyone in camp worked hard preparing, checking, and rechecking the tackle and equipment, respooling the linen lines, and as Peter Williams cleans the Cox reels, Zane works hand in hand with Captain Mitchell, testing the drags and getting ready for another day on the water. Fishing near the small town of Russell in the Bay of Islands, they would line up landmarks or rock formations to locate their relative position to where they had fished previously. The sunken rocks and reefs were home to some of the largest yellowtail in the world, one of which established a new world record of 111 pounds, caught by Zane on heavy tackle. Gray found that he needed extra heavy-duty gear to tackle the monsters of the South Pacific, and he had this reel, the largest reel ever made, built for him by Arthur Kowalski. which held 1,500 yards of 39-thread linen line. When the Australian government found out what had happened to tourism in New Zealand after Zane Grey's visit, they were eager to have him come to Australia. He was anxious to find out about Australia because it was as much a virgin territory for angling as New Zealand had been, or even more so because there were fewer, if any, deep-sea fishermen in Australia in the 1920s. He caught numerous marlin, including the 400.
That's a great question, Tim. Michael.
Yes, sir.
Tim wants to know if you had to use old vintage tackle to fish today, what would you use? That's a great question because Michael caught fish on vintage tackle.
I was very fortunate to be the first Tuna Club member in 67 years to have qualified with a tuna over 100 pounds fishing on vintage gear with linen line. So it's not for everybody. There's no question. Fishing the antique tackle is a challenge at the highest level because you're fishing basically a wooden hickory pole or a bamboo cane pole with a pre-1952 reel. You can use the star drags, thumb drags if you need them, but it's all linen line. It's, you're fishing pre-1952 gear, and to be able to capture a tuna over 100 pounds on an old wooden rod with kite string was just it was a thrill beyond my imagination. So it takes a lot of prep. Ocean City is one of my favorites. The Flugers are really good. Obviously, the Kowalskis are some of the best reels you can find if you can afford them. But they're, those are high-end collector's reels. Some of them I think have sold for over $100,000. I'm not sure, but some of these reels are selling for six figures. And all of my reels have come from, the swap meets and garage sales. So get an old reel and take it apart and refurbish it and put in new drags. And Mark Cernich there for the Tuna Club has just been a phenomenal individual, helping all the members kind of get acclimated to vintage tackle. And Steve Morris is another one who he takes it to the upteenth level. And so you just have to have the right gear. Like Steve said, you got the right drags, the right line, the right rod, the right harness. Everything's balanced. You've got a fair shot at catching these fish. And when you do catch one on vintage gear, I've never experienced anything quite like it. It was one of the most fulfilling and satisfying moments of my life.
Can you even buy linen line
Very
anymore?
difficult. It's very difficult to find. JD's Big Game Tackle up there in Newport, I think he spent at least 10 years trying to source over in Europe a manufacturer that would produce linen line again. They do linen for a lot of, they do it for like a lot of other things besides fishing. And it sort of wasn't being produced as a fishing line for years. And so JD, I believe, has found a source. And for the first time, I've been a member at the club for, 15 or 20 years. It's for the first time we actually have linen line available to us through JD's Big Game Tackle, as opposed to having to go on eBay and constantly be searching through the antique tackle collectors' websites and constantly looking for linen line. I guess 15, 20 years ago, linen line became very popular with antique shipbuilders, model builders that built those beautiful, square rig sailors, and they'd use linen line for all the rigging. So it was being used for something besides fishing, which was killing us because we wanted to fish with it. And you find a spool and you go to test it, and let's say it's a 24 thread linen, supposed to break around 72 pounds, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's breaking at 8 pounds, 6 pounds, because it's old. It's cotton. It's basically woven cotton for all intent and purposes, linen. And so it's very difficult to find it other than through JD's. And it's been a blessing to the club and anybody that wants to fish linen line to have a source now where you can actually count on the line breaking close to its tensile strength or breaking weight. Because generally you find old line and it just snaps. You just wrap it around your fingers and you can pull 75-pound string and break it in your hands. So JD's has been the source for the linen line.
Yeah, and our buddy Mike Lewis wants to know, how do you not get it to absorb the water and break?
Mike, that's one of the things we talked about a little bit there. You showed earlier Zane Gray drying the linen line on those wine liners, on those line dryers, big winders. After every time the linen line gets wet, it has to be dried out. You can't just wind it back onto the reel because it'd be like getting your T-shirt wet and wadding it up in a ball and stick it in the closet. And you go back a week later, it's going to smell like holy hell. And the T-shirt, the fabrics are going to be, the cotton threads are going to be worn down. So you have to dry your line after every use. I string mine on a tree. I've got a driveway that's at a 150-foot tree distance from the garage, and I got eye hooks on the S hooks on the drilled into the tree and drilled into the top of the roof there on the eaves on the driveway, and I just run up and down the driveway with this linen line, bringing it out and letting it dry. You can't let it stay in the sun for too long because that'll start to rot it too. So you really have to take care of your line. A lot of guys will take it, dry it, and then freeze it. They keep it in their freezer. I don't do that, but you really have to take care of your line. Unlike anything we've experienced on monofilament or Dacron or Spectra, the linen line is truly it's a fabric.
Yeah, so check out the end of this movie. We'll answer a few more questions and then
on black, which set an Australian record.
Zane Grey and Captain Mitchell's incredible captures back in the mid-1920s introduced anglers to the Bay of Islands. Today, this historical location is still considered one of the premier fishing destinations in the world. The Amagi has been meticulously restored, and as Matt Watson explains, being on board and having the opportunity to fish from the same boat, sitting in the same chair, fishing the same way on the same waters Zane and Mitchell fished 100 years ago is truly an honor.
Back in the day in the Bay of Islands when there was marlin and big sharks everywhere, and it was real sort of pioneering stuff back then, so to be on this boat today, it's almost a little bit emotional. Probably sitting exactly where the great man Zane Grey sat. I can tell you it's quite something else. We've got the similar sort of gear that Zane Grey's using. We're on the very boat. The history on this boat's incredible. Now, check this out, the tackle. This here is an old Fluger reel. Now, Zane Grey introduced this style of reel where the reel sits on top of the rod. All the New Zealand anglers back in the 20s were fishing with giant salmon-style reels that hung below the rod with the guides below the rod. Now, this rod here is made from a solid piece of tanikaha, the strongest native timber they could find for a fishing rod. And we'll see if this antique gear can handle a marlin, and we can do it old school style. Oh, I thought I saw something then, just in behind that. Yeah, yes, there he is. Slow the boat down. He's right here. He's right here on the flatline teaser. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Oh! There he is again. Look at him. Look at him. Right there. Boat a little bit faster. He's right here. He's right here. He's got it. He's got it. Okay, I'm tight. Oh, he's burning my fingers. Yeah, I've got him on. I've got him on. I've got him on. Yes. Came in on that fender teaser. Right in close. Woo! Look at him go. Yeah! Oh man, I saw him come right up on that teaser. That was awesome. It was awesome. Right, got to get the old harness straps on now. The old gear's going amazingly well. He's taking line out of the reel. We're all loaded up on a bit of stick, an old tanikaha bit of stick. We hooked that marlin, no doubt exactly like they would have done in the old days. I threw the bait out. He was there for ages. It was so exciting. He'd come up. He had a couple of goes at the bait and missed it. He was right up at the back of the boat on that fender, on the fender teaser. Yeah! Okay, I'm losing a lot of line now. Losing heaps of line. Oh, the reel's getting really hot. Oh, that reel's getting hot. I can hardly touch that side plate. Get a bit of deck on. Get the reel snapped, and the reel's no longer functioning. The reel's actually given out on us. We'll see if we can tie this reel on. No doubt, obviously, not being used for decades, this is given out on us. The only drag that I can put on this at the moment is with my thumbs, and my skin isn't going to last that long Got the guys working fast to try and tie this reel back on. And we've actually lost all wind on the handle too, guys.
Would we?
Yep, look, this is deep.
The drag.
The drag popped it all in at the same time. The trouble is we've got nothing left here. Maybe if I take weight off and drop, it might. Ha! We're back in business. Well, so far we're still connected. Some of the dramas that I've read about that happened on this boat seem to be happening today.
Whoa! Right! Get that rod, Pete! Hurry now! Look out that line! Be careful now. I think I can hold him. Put the rod in, Bill. I think we got a chance yet. All right, now we'll get in.
Oh man, this is awesome. Oh, he's kicking. He's kicking, he's not happy. Oh, this is like being a broomstick, this rod. There's just no bend in this rod. It's just like solid. Really having to nurse this reel, you can see it's only just holding on. I'm really having to hold it with my hands to stabilize it, particularly when the fish jumps like that. It's almost ripping the reel right off the rod. The fish isn't far away at all. It hasn't taken us long to get it in at all.
You reckon you got him whipped there, old fella?
No, mate. I would never say such a thing. You will never ever get me to say I have whipped the fish until I have landed it.
Matt got his fish, proclaiming it was one of the most satisfying experiences of his lifetime. And whether you're an advocate of the old gear or someone who embraces the technological advances, what matters most is the quality of the experience. The essence of the sport has always been and will always be about the bite.
Now he's got it.
I want to know that I did everything that I have in my being to get that bite. It's all about the bite. The bite is the most important part of the whole thing. Go fly fishing, I want to get a bite. I want to see that fish take the fly. When he bites my line, I don't care what happens after that. I got him to bite it, I'll hand the pole to somebody else. And I want to get another bait out there or another lure out there, and I want to get the next bite. I always want to bite. So that's it.
Oh my goodness. That was incredible, Michael.
Oh, thanks, David. I hope everyone enjoyed it there.
And so we had a couple of questions. Tim Ogilvy wants to know, do you guys use the same knots that they used back then do you use the same knots to tie the linen as you would for the mono?
No, you can't really bend. You can't bend a linen line in half. It'll snap. It's just like taking a blade of grass or a string of straw, piece of straw, and when you bend it, that fiber is going to snap or you bend it. So the only way to tie linen is basically, it's almost like a Chinese puzzle where you lay the line on top of itself, and then you start doing half hitches with waxed linen every five. I do a half hitch going up the line every 5 knots, and then I do a single wrap around one of the lines, single wrap around the other line, and then 5 more wraps around, and you go up 15, 20 times on each side. So basically you're creating a Chinese puzzle. So the linen line always lays like this, and then you wrap it, and then you split it and wrap it some more. So it takes time. You basically create a bimini at the other end. So when you do a big long bimini lap, you bring it back and you're doing the same thing with the wax linen instead of using the string itself. So you can't really tie linen in any type of a knot. You have to basically weave it together. So again, one more step in the process of fishing with the antique gear. So completely different knots. And guys sometimes would used to take little pieces of leather and when they'd round the linen for the loop, they'd put that leather on the outside, on the inside of the linen, and then cinch that up so they had some padding so So the hook, the eye of the hook wasn't actually leaning against the linen itself, but not too many guys do that today anymore.
Wow, that's incredible. All the things, the different steps you have to go to fish with that stuff is just amazing.
It's been fun.
It's absolutely amazing. Gang, if you have any more questions, if you got to get it in there real quick. We went a little overtime today, but I think it was worth it. And from what me and Elliot are seeing here, we got a phenomenal amount of views on this. So I think we're going to keep it going, Michael. I think we'll do this again next week.
If people want to see it and everybody's enjoying it, I'm more than happy to do it. And please keep firing off those questions, because it's good for me to be able to answer some of the questions I hadn't even thought of for years. So I appreciate your support, and if you want to see the film now, it's available. You can go to the historyofsportfishing.com, and underneath the watch trailer button, there's one that says purchase options, and it'll come up with a list of all the places that the film's available now worldwide, from Prime Video to YouTube movies to Google, Amazon, everything else in between. So we're continuing to expand the distribution of the film and trying to get it into everyone's hands, basically for free or as inexpensively as we possibly can. I think they've got it down to like $2.99 an episode now or something. So it's the deal of a lifetime. Great presents.
Yep. And it's been wonderful to watch this come together and to see how many of you guys and gals totally enjoyed this. And I can't even believe how many comments we've gotten and how much you guys enjoy this. Wait till you see part 2. Wait till you see the second chapter and the third and the fourth and all the way to the 12th. I think we're on to something here.
I hope so. If everybody's liking it, we'll keep doing it.
And thank you guys very, very much. Make sure you go and pay Promar a visit. Check out all the different products they have over there. You won't be disappointed. And then, gang, if this wasn't enough today, oh my gosh, get ready. Tut, Larry, and Mike are out fishing with Justin at Catalina. They're going to be going live. They're fishing rod and reel right now, but I told them we're doing this show, so we're going to join with them tonight around 5:30, 6 o'clock for some lobster fishing. And if you guys know Tut caught the biggest lobster last year, and the year before he let the biggest lobster go. So he's kind of lucky that way. So you might see some phenomenal lobster fishing tonight. If not, you're going to see some epic fishing anyways. And thank you all for watching today. What a great day. What a fun show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dave. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning in. And I just can't tell you how much we appreciate your support, and take a kid fishing.
Yeah, take a kid fishing.